Well, howdy. I'm Sam, and on behalf of myself and Michelle, I am extremely happy to welcome everyone here to Struktur event number 2. I also want to make a deep thank you to all of our sponsors and partners. If it weren't for them, this event would not be happening. So it's through the generosity and support of everyone that we've worked with, that has created this event. So thank you thank you very much. I also want to thank all of the speakers that you will be hearing from over the next 2 days. They've already put in a lot of work and a lot of creativity and a lot of their time in creating the presentations that you're going to be hearing. There's a lot of really amazing, interesting, intriguing, fascinating ideas that we're going to be hearing, and I am just really excited and really thrilled to be here. Michelle and I have been working on this, literally since the last Struktur event ended last year. And this conference has never been far from our thoughts, and we just want to thank every one of you for helping to make this a reality and to spend your time and to come and share this experience with us. So thank you very much.
Yes, we can't say thank you enough. This wouldn't be happening if you weren't here. We're putting it together, but you guys come to the party, you make it happen. And thank you for coming to the opening event. The event is full, so there will be more than this at the event tomorrow. And we're really excited that it is full. It's going to be a lot of energy in the room. The main thing, too, we also want to keep remembering why we're here. We're here, this is the first design conference for the outdoor active industry. This kind of thing doesn't exist. It exists now because we all created it together. And we're here to really celebrate design, to push the profession of design in the outdoor industry forward, to really claim it, grow it, and decide where we're going to drive the outdoor industry. It's going through a massive change right now, which is really exciting and scary, but there's so much opportunity. And we're seeing that here with so many thought leaders and new ideas and entrepreneurs coming to this event, supporting this event, being part of it. So we have a lot to talk about over the conference, and we really look forward to your input and being part of everything. So first off tonight, we have a trend presentation just to get us our heads open, get excited about things. We were going to have PromoSteel come, and PromoSteel out of Paris put together a great presentation at the last minute, well, not at last minute, but specifically for us, and we're all set to come and super excited. And I wanted to say that Jana Stark, the woman who was doing the presentation, her daughter got ill a couple days ago. And she called in a panic and is not able to make it, and they were not able to replace her with somebody that we could keep the presentation going. And the reason I also wanted to bring this up is that, she's a working mom, kids. Like anybody here who's mom, dad, has kids, we struggle a lot with families and work and everything to keep it all going. And when kids get sick, you drop it all, right? So we wanted to really support that and say we understand, totally get that. The outdoor industry is about family, it's about community, and it's about supporting each other, having a good life, and having fun. So great, we are supporting that. We're really sorry they're not going to make it. They really want to be here next time. And what we have done now is we've brought on our wonderful partner, Jeanine Pesce from Range. Thank goodness, who has done work with PromoSteel and many, many other people. But Jeanine knows the outdoor industry really on a trend side of things better than anybody. So Jeanine stepped in last night building a presentation for us, and we are so fortunate to have her come in and bring her expertise. So, thank you very much. We are indebted to you.
Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing? I'm happy to be here to get everybody jazzed up for the next few days. We're going to have an incredible, inspirational, challenging, emotional experience. I spoke at the first event last May, And it was one of the most unique experiences I've had because there was this incredible, genuine connection that everyone in the room was able to make. And I know a lot of us only get together during trade shows, and everyone's kind of in work mode and representing their company and their brand, and we don't really get to let our guard down and to share experiences. And for me, Struktur is not only an incredible place to get inspired, but it's also a great place to make very human connections with people. We're going through the whole presentation. Hold on. Didn't realize that was happening. So this is actually a presentation I showed at Outdoor Retailer this last summer. Okay, so if you don't know me, my name is Jeanine Pesce. I have been a trend consultant in the outdoor industry for going on about 11, 12 years now. I worked for Promo Steel before. I worked for StyleSite.com, and then I launched my own small creative consulting agency called Range about 2 years ago. We are a full-service creative agency, and we have a biannual newsprint magazine that we focus on as an extension of our brand, and we kind of publish content that speaks to what's happening in the market, emerging brands, established brands, anyone that's kind of doing something interesting. And we also have an editorial platform and, as I mentioned, a full range of creative services. So I create these presentations every season, and they're not so much trend presentations as they are kind of a snapshot of what's going on in the market, or what I think is important, or what's really I'm feeling passionate about. And I noticed, over the last few years, and Michelle and I have talked about this quite a bit, there hasn't been a lot of movement in the industry for women's apparel, women's storytelling, marketing for women, social media engagement for women. Retail is a little bit dull for women, so I really wanted to dig into that a little bit. This is a shortened version of the traditional presentation I usually give. It's going to just be a little bit of a snapshot. And I'm also moderating a panel on Friday where we're going to dig in a little bit deeper into some of these key points I mentioned. So storytelling, marketing, social media, apparel, and soft goods and hard goods, and what that means for contemporary women. So in order for me to tell that story, I think we need to kind of look at what's happening in pop culture, because I think that's where a lot of this comes from. We, as an industry, and I speak for myself when I say industry as part of the outdoor industry, we're not always looking outside of our bubble. We're kind of all looking internally. We have a very myopic view of what's going on, which is great, because we're servicing our clients and our consumers incredibly well, but we're maybe not servicing lifestyle consumers. So in general, women are feeling very empowered right now. We have a lot of incredible role models, all ages, shapes, sizes, and colors, that are showing women that they can be anything they want. Do they want to be CEOs? Do they want to be performers? Do they want to be mothers? Do they want to be politicians? What is it that you want to be? Hillary's going to potentially become the president. I mean, it's limitless where we can go with this. And we're seeing, especially in the fashion industry, also recognize that women of all ages need to be represented and spoken to. So we have Julia Roberts as the face for Givenchy and Joan Didion as the face for Celine. This is very unusual for the fashion industry to be celebrating women that have wrinkles, that maybe aren't at the beginning of their career, and it's also showing women that they can be kind of incredibly badass at any age, and they don't necessarily have to conform to a stereotype or to fit into a box of what is, preconceived notions of what it means to be feminine or sexy or girly, or, we're kind of breaking molds everywhere we go. We have Monet Davis here, who was one of the first girl to ever pitch a no-hitter in a World Series Little League game. And what's interesting about Monet is she's, for her age, quite accomplished and quite mature. She recently started in a partnership, a footwear company where the proceeds of the sneakers go back to young women in neighborhoods, urban environments that maybe don't necessarily get as much time outside, and it's kind of giving them this mentorship opportunity. And she's really positioning herself as this kind of like wise woman for her age. She's 13 years old, and she's kind of leading the march for young women everywhere. We're seeing a lot of different trends being picked up in fashion, and right now, obviously, the fashion industry is really picking up on this fitness trend. And this is gonna essentially set the tone for where we're heading with the outdoor woman and her story. But something's shifted in women. Wellness is being perceived as a luxury. Celine bags are out and green juices are in. And it means more for a woman to go to the gym and to look cute than it means for her to go shopping with her girlfriends. Frivolity is out, meaning is in, connectivity is in, community is in. We're seeing high-end designers tapping into this market and speaking to this woman directly by creating fashion-forward contemporary lines of apparel, of footwear, of accessories. I think in the last 2 years, there has been an increase in fashion-forward fitness apparel. There's been probably 100 new brands have emerged in the last 2 years alone just to respond to this trend. We've seen companies like Under Armour, who are traditional, fitness brands, taking note of this and bringing in non-endemic ambassadors. And there's this a very controversial concept because a lot of people say, well, why would we be promoting, a model to be as an athlete? Why aren't we giving this campaign to a young, up-and-coming, emerging female athlete? Like, why are we celebrating someone who already has money? That's really funny because if you think about it, is who's to say that Giselle isn't an athlete? This campaign that corresponds to this launch is called "I Will What I Want." It's been incredibly successful for Under Armour, and it's really meant to question stereotypes and why we have these preconceived notions about women and athletes and what they're meant to be. The entire campaign is really interesting. I don't know if anyone has seen it, but Giselle walks into a white room, kind of an industrial-inspired box, and there's a punching bag in the middle of the room, and she drops her gym bag, and as she walks into the room, there's all of these words start flashing on the walls all around the room. And in real time, they've basically aggregated people tweeting about Giselle. She's ugly, she's fat, she shouldn't be a model, she's not this, she's not that, she's rich already. Who said Giselle could be in this room? And it's literally goes on for an hour. You can watch this film loop. And as these words are feeding in all around her, it's like fueling this energy and this fire in her. And she just goes wild on this punching bag. And then it segues into her doing kickboxing. It segues into her doing yoga. It segues into her doing like CrossFit. It literally takes you an hour through of Giselle literally breaking her ass, fighting these words that are popping up all around her. And it just proves this point of like, why isn't Giselle considered an athlete? So it's an interesting take. We have seen a lot of, as I mentioned, non-endemic brands dipping their feet into this active trend that's been very popular. And what's really interesting about it is there was a time when no brands were doing this. This was very revolutionary. Like Stella McCartney for Adidas, that was the first time a designer had worked with an athletic active brand ever before. And now it's kind of par for the course. But what's interesting is that we're seeing really indie independent designers now teaming up with very established active and athletic brands like Athleta and Derek Lam, and doing collections that are created specifically for performance, not just for looks, not just for aesthetics. And what's really interesting is that, I have a lot of clients come to me and they want to get into the outdoor market or the active market, and they'd like to kind of create product on their own, and they're not necessarily experts, I always give them this advice. If I wanted to start a surfboard company, I wouldn't start shaping surfboards myself. I would go to an expert shaper and I'd have them build a surfboard for me. And I think that's what we're seeing now. It's the collaboration isn't just, a status symbol. It has to be taken seriously in order to be accepted within the industry. Transparency above all, obviously, is what matters most. Victoria's Secret has obviously also taken notice of this active trend, and what's really interesting is that a mass market brand like Victoria's Secret, no one really wants to take too seriously when we consider them entering into this arena. But they're actually teaching us a thing or two. This here is a sports bra that has a heart rate monitor built into the elastic. So that seems like a no-brainer once you see it, right? Like a heart rate monitor needs to clip around your chest. No one's ever thought about embedding it into the elastic of a sports bra. So sometimes it takes someone coming from outside of the industry to kind of rethink and retool something that we think about every day, and we don't really approach it from a creative perspective. And that's what I think we're gaining from the fashion industry, kind of obviously outdoor is trending. That's why we're all here. How do we handle this? How do we react to it? Do we care? Do we not care? I mean, that's a conversation I think we've all been having over and over. This is Rachel Wang. She's an editor for Style.com, and she just posted an article about the gear she would use on her first time hike. She went backpacking. She was inspired by Wild, Cheryl Strayed's book, and Reese Witherspoon on the big screen, and she's decided to become a backpacker. This is a girl who has obviously no experience backpacking, and she doesn't know where to start, but she's chosen a Sierra Designs tent that I actually have and use backpacking, and a pretty decent backpack. So someone's giving her some pointers, and what's interesting is that she's very committed to this movement. Vogue's featuring urban rock climbing videos. I mean, this is pretty limitless in terms of like fashion being interested in what's going on in outdoor. And as I mentioned, this is a very brief version of this presentation. We just kind of picked the greatest hits. I get a little bit more in depth with it typically. But this is not the first time we've seen this happen. Fashion likes to leech on, and I use the word leech because it's not always done with integrity, to trends. So in the 80s, it was all about aerobics, right? Olivia Newton-John introduced aerobics to everyone, and everyone's wearing spandex. And in the 90s, it was all about wellness. Donna Karan, went east for inspiration and came back and introduced yoga to the world. And in the 2000s, Alexander Wang had football jerseys on the runway, and all of a sudden everyone was obsessed with varsity sports and team sports. And this is an ongoing cycle, and it just happens to be the outdoor industry's turn to kind of be focused on. There's been a lot of really cool articles recently. A friend of ours, Angelo, actually wrote one for this website called 4 Pins, called Why Outdoor is the New Heritage. And in 2008, when the menswear heritage boom kind of hit and everyone was doing the lumbersexual thing, because that's not really a new term, we know that, like lumbersexual's been a thing that's been happening. They just kind of repackaged the word for buzz in the last few months. But this has been going on since 2008. Men wearing heritage brands, Red Wing, Filson, Levi's, things that had stories, years under their belt. And this has kind of been a nice evolution. And Angela drew some really interesting parallels between the evolution of that trend and the outdoor trend, and why that's important, and why that shift has happened. And essentially it comes down to this kind of this pared down mentality, like people started mixing performance apparel with heritage pieces because that's what was kind of becoming the norm. After the recession in 2008, it showing off and being frivolous and spending money on items that didn't function kind of became a faux pas and looked down upon. It all became about investing in pieces that lasted seasons, that spanned trends, and outdoor happened to be the most durable, versatile, dependable apparel on the market, especially when it came to outerwear. And I think that played a really big role in and it's had a lasting effect on the fashion industry, and it still continues to do so. This is Annie Smith Pack. She's an American mountaineer from 1850. I mean, this is a woman who was climbing in slacks and wearing a tunic when women were getting arrested for wearing dresses. And we've always seen this like go against the grain mentality when it's come to outdoor, and it's always been about kind of marching to the beat of your own drum and adopting and adapting pieces of apparel to kind of fit the needs of your lifestyle and to function with you. We've had outdoor pioneers like Bev Johnson and Lynn Hill showing women that it was okay to be, one of the guys, and it was okay to achieve greatness wearing whatever at that time they deemed to be functional for them. We've seen this kind of renaissance of, canvas and khaki and thanks to the heritage brands kind of having a place and a forum again. And this is all kind of going back to the very beginning of when people were active outside. We weren't wearing, super technical apparel. We were wearing functional stuff that worked with our bodies and protected us, and that was durable. Women have been taking chances and putting themselves out there and inspiring each other incredibly over the last, 10, 20 years. And I don't think that we've even reached our limit yet. I think this is just the beginning. And what's incredibly interesting to me is, you know, the women on the screen have set the tone in terms of performance and innovation as athletes, but we're seeing a lifestyle segment emerge. And they're the women that are new to the outdoor industry. They're the women that have never been to the Salt Palace. They're women that are non-endemic. They're women that want to learn how to camp and hike and climb and fly fish, and they have no clue where to start. And there's incredible communities that are being built around them. And you know, we need to ask ourselves, and this is a great quote from Mark Galbraith I interviewed him a few years ago, and I said, you know, why do you think that women are being drawn to the outdoors right now? Like, what is this pull for non-endemic women to get outside? And he said he thinks it's because women need to get back to their roots. And not just women, men as well, but it's this idea of this visceral connection to the outdoors, this emotional pull that's guttural, it's kind of, in response to how overwhelmed we are with work, how oversensitive and overexposed we are to our digital lives, you know, a need to disconnect. And I can't agree with him more. I think what's really interesting too is that women now are feeling very free with their self outside, in a sense that, like, they want to be creative, and they also want to not have to be as tactical and performance oriented as maybe we've expected them to be in the past. You know, in the past, it's all been about keeping up with men or being kind of territorial about being in the outdoors together. And now it's very much about being a part of a bigger community and being vulnerable and being, you know, not necessarily having all the answers or maybe knowing exactly how to be an outdoors woman. This is Trail Mavens, which is an organization in the Bay Area. Sasha Cox was actually a life coach before she started Trail Mavens, and her goal is to get women outside, women that have no clue how to camp or hike. She teaches them basic survival skills, basic outdoor skills, how to build a fire, how to pitch a tent, how to read a map, how to read a compass, things that, like, we take for granted because that's part of who we are. And she's had this incredible growth in the last year, bringing women together because of the community she's building. It's very inclusive, and it's about accessibility. And I think more than anything, that's what we're yearning for, to be a part of the bigger picture. A lot of times with the outdoor industry, and I came from outside the outdoor industry, so I can attest to this, it's a members-only club. You have to earn your stripes, as you should. You know, this isn't an industry built on cotton candy and picnics. This is a serious, hardcore industry, and you need to, you know, as we know, lives can be at stake from time to time, and you have to take it very seriously, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't open the doors to let people in that want to be a part of it. You know, a lot of times people don't know where to start, and it's very intimidating. And I think we can do a better job of opening our gates and bringing everyone in, because at the end of the day, it's about educating people to have fun and enjoy themselves outside, right? And it's about respecting nature and respecting, you know, those that have come before us, but also giving people the opportunity to explore this relationship, this potential relationship they can have with the outdoors. And honestly, there's a lot of consumers out there that we're not talking to, and I think they fit into this equation. This is Alex Suarez from Shoestring Adventures. She's incredible. There was a really great article in High West I guess it was last year, about the death of backpacking, and I know a lot of people in this room read it, and it was, you know, why aren't kids getting outside? Why aren't they backpacking? Why aren't they committed to suffer? Why don't they want to struggle for 5 to 6 days? Because they just don't. They want immediate gratification. They want to go on a day hike, they want to come back, and they want Wi-Fi so they can put it on Instagram, number one. And number two, they just don't want to suffer the way we want to suffer. I mean, they don't need to anymore. Everything is accessible for them. So what I think is really interesting about Shoestring Adventures, so Alex is based in LA. She hosts a series of camping and backpacking trips and day hikes and stuff like that. But she doesn't call them hikes, she calls them meetups. She said, you know, it's a meetup, so it's a social element attached to it. It doesn't seem as, like, hardcore or maybe intimidating, because there's this social element, and it's very welcoming. And again, she's basically introducing very non-endemic women into the outdoor atmosphere without freaking them out and without scaring them and without making them feel that maybe they're not up to snuff or par, and there's a place for them. We're also seeing, obviously, the road trip evolution has come full circle and full force. I remember one of the first families on our open road to go on a road trip and document it and start taking photos of themselves on this road trip. They went to Chile. And in the last 2 years, I think there's probably like 300 people that are in Westies right now, somewhere in the world, documenting their road trip. And what's interesting about that is, it's a trend, obviously. If more than 2 people are doing it, no. But everyone was really bummed out on their 9-to-5 life. Like, people were feeling very stifled and really uninspired. And that is the common denominator. And that's what drew them to kind of shed all these layers and get outside. Van Crafted is one of my favorite examples because they had never been camping before they bought their Westphalia. This couple, they're in New York. One was a brand director at Ralph Lauren, and the girl, Kelly, was a brand director at Ralph Lauren, and Brendan was, I think he was a filmmaker or a creative director. And they had never been camping, and they bought this Westphalia. They got rid of their apartment, and they went on the road. And what's interesting about it is they started a creative agency from their camper. You know, that's cool, you're gonna take a trip, but they were actually being productive while they were taking their trip. And what happened is that they were able to actually create like a small business while they were on the road and engage with a lot of brands that I love, that you love, you know, smaller, really conceptual, emerging brands, and tell great stories. And honestly, that's really what it comes down to, is telling great stories. They were able to kind of harness this energy and this freedom and create incredibly beautiful images and content, and that felt genuine, and it felt accessible to a wide range of people. Somewhere along the line, this you know, street style and, you know, Instagram and social media kind of shifted dramatically. Like, there was a moment when all of a sudden street bloggers went from fashion to outdoor. All of a sudden now we have a whole crop of outdoor bloggers and outdoor blogs where women can go to find information on, you know, apparel, on first-time hikes, beauty products, art, fashion, photography. Like, none of this existed 2 years ago. And it's since blown up. I mean, there's Dirtbag Darling, there's She Explores. I mean, there's tons of different examples I could give you of like incredibly talented women doing really fun stuff outside and capturing it and making art and connecting people. And it's something happened, and I don't know what it is. And what's really neat is this is a great opportunity for brands to align themselves with these ambassadors. You know, you can, if you're really struggling with trying to figure out how to talk to this lifestyle consumer in this lifestyle market, consider reaching out to one of these brand ambassadors and establishing a relationship with them. I mean, these girls have tens and thousands of followers. Some of them have 30 and 60,000 followers on Instagram. I mean, they are promoting, and it's native advertising at its best. It's totally organic, and it's totally genuine. And again, it's entry level, so it's accessible. It's not as aspirational. I'm not trying to take away from any of the athletes or the you know, the ambassadors that brands are working with, because those women have earned their place and they have earned these opportunities, and they're mind-blowing and so inspirational. But again, there's a whole load of women out there that can't necessarily relate to that athlete on that aspirational level. So this is a great place to start. There are also women who are you know, makers and creators and artists that I don't think necessarily that we think about as brand ambassadors. Carhartt launched this Tumblr called Crafted in Carhartt, I guess about 2 years ago, and it's just women in Carhartt that are like sculptors, carpenters, like anything that has to do with hands creating or making, and they're capturing them in this really kind of in their natural habitat. It's, you know, not about a fake or a faux approach. It's not the lumbersexual guy, you know, with the fake urban hipster guy with the beard. It's like a real serious woman doing something really badass in Carhartt. And I think that's also kind of interesting. It's, you know, a lot of brands struggle with how to position themselves in urban environments or in creative environments. Like, how do we get off the mountain? You know, and I think there's a lot of opportunities to work with women that are not necessarily even on the mountain to begin with, you know, but they are still doing something pretty serious and something that takes skill and something that they've honed in a craft that can be respected. And I think that's also a great opportunity to align yourself. women are participating, and this is also men, this isn't just women. I'm not trying to be super feminist here, but it's a women's presentation. But women are participating in this new hybrid lifestyle where they're literally 4 seasons every day doing something different. You know, it's not just about end use. Like, I don't have one jacket that I just use for cycling. I have a jacket I use for cycling, for climbing, for running, to the gym, riding the train. I mean, it's about approaching apparel from this 4-season perspective. And people want to invest in pieces that will function in a range of climates and a range of social situations. You know, it's not just about, this is the shell I wear when I'm doing this one activity. It's about apparel that crosses, that can function across multiple categories and multiple social environments. You know, I want to be able to purchase something, especially for the premium price I'm going to pay for an outdoor functional product that I can wear to work, that I can wear on the subway, that I can wear, you know, my trip camping. It's going to be kind of something that's versatile. And it comes back, I think, to basics, you know, really getting basics right. Pieces of apparel that are timeless and classic, and it can be worn any time of the day in any kind of you know, situation. I think we take for granted how important basics are, and I think a lot of times, especially when we're designing for women, we're making things uber complicated, like lots of colors and trims and treatments and mixed materials and fobs and zipper pulls that are, you know, shouting, and no one wants to really wear that. I mean, maybe they do, but most women mix fashion, lifestyle, and some functional pieces these days. And the women that do it successfully are the women that mix basics together because they're classic and timeless. Brands like Everlane, which are doing a great job. Brands like The Gap. I mean, honestly, like The Gap. Not ethically speaking, but, you know, from a functional standpoint, it's just wearable pieces that aren't complicated. So, you know, Duckworth, which is a wool company out of Bozeman, they do completely vertical manufacturing in the U.S. from the sheep and fiber all the way to the finished product, have quietly launched this line of women's basics that are beautiful, so simple, so fine to the skin. I mean, it feels like you're wearing almost nothing. And this is the hardest thing for people to do right, is to get a simple tank, a simple crew neck, a simple racer back, a simple legging right. This whole presentation was based on an article I wrote in Range magazine, the newsprint that we do. And I asked, you know, I interviewed like 20 women, and I asked all of them what kind of pants that they hike in. And they all said leggings. Nobody actually hikes in hiking pants because they're ill-fitting, the material doesn't feel great, and the silhouette's not flattering. So there's something to be said about that. You know, there was a time when women were getting dressed, you know, just basically to kind of appeal to men, like, right? Like, I'm getting dressed to look good. I want to get some action, or I want to like get some looks on the train, or I want to impress my husband or my boyfriend. And now women are just getting dressed for each other. They want to look good even if they're working out. They want to look good even if they're hiking. You know, it isn't, those worlds are no longer separate. They actually cross over quite a bit. And I think if someone in this room can make a really spot on trend-driven silhouette for a hiking pant, it would probably, you know, blow the lid off the whole market because no one's doing it yet. We're also seeing a lot of product made for women by women. So this is Coalition Snow out of Tahoe. This was started by a woman named Jen Gurecki, who did not come from the industry at all. And she was really sick of soft, short skis that she couldn't shred in. That was literally her quote. She wanted skis that could function for the level of skiing and snowboarding she was doing. And it was almost impossible to find for her. And I think that's something that we're seeing more and more. It used to be really easy to grade down things and, you know, the shrink and pink situation and make it in a men's, you know, one men's size smaller and, you know, a different pink colorway, and that's just not going to cut it anymore. Like, women can see through that. They can see it from a mile away, and they want product made specifically for them. And product that functions at the highest level of functionality. This is Machines for Freedom. This is a brand out of Malibu, California, of all places. And again, this woman did not come from inside the industry. She was, I think she worked in the hotel and restaurant hospitality industry before. And she was a cyclist, a road racer, a road cyclist, and she found that, you know, she couldn't, all the camis on her bibs were giving her problems. She couldn't ride for more than X amount of miles without getting some situation going on. So she set out to make a seriously ergonomically appropriate bib and cami for women. And they went through like 60 prototypes. They logged like 10,000 miles testing, and they finally came up with this bib that, I don't know if you can see how beautiful it is from there, but it's literally gorgeous, and it hugs the body, and it's made exactly for a woman, anatomically for a woman. And I think that is really, really a signal of where we're heading with performance and technical apparel. We have to take this into consideration because the bar is now being raised, and once the bar is raised, you can't go back. Like, you have to keep going forward and keep adapting and evolving. And I think that's kind of, we're gonna have to respond to this new market that's emerging. I also think the way that we are showing women in lookbooks and catalogs has to dramatically change. A lot of times we're using our athletes as our models, which is incredible. And again, like I said, I do not take any respect away from these athletes. They have earned this place in our industry, and they deserve the shine and the recognition for the hard work and hours they've put in to honing this sport. But I think from a lifestyle perspective, it might be beneficial for brands to also have a lifestyle catalog or lookbook. I really think that if we want to appeal to a non-endemic audience, we need to start speaking to a non-endemic audience. A lot of companies, I've reached out to them and worked with them on various different projects, and the ones that we've done lifestyle lookbooks with have had so much success pitching non-endemic media and getting national coverage on their product. I worked on a project for Keen for the Unique sandal, and it got a lot of traction inside the outdoor industry, but we did a lifestyle lookbook for them, and they were able to get placement on fashion websites, streetwear websites, menswear websites, and in print, places they would never have been before without this lifestyle lookbook. So I also think that plays a big role in this equation. And again, this slide's really going back to this idea of under-designing. I think Aether's done a really great job with apparel for women. It's no frills. It's classic, timeless silhouettes we can all relate to. Obviously, there's no hot pink, which is important. There's no print matching, there's no daisies and twirly swirly things. It's just like clean, straightforward design that if you didn't know it was a woman's jacket, maybe it would have, at least the one on the right or the left rather, would maybe appeal to a man. I mean, it's genderless. I think things need to be a little bit more genderless these days. I think unisex is definitely a funny word, but a word that is getting more and more traction and becoming more and more relevant. I don't necessarily want to shop in the women's section. Sometimes I want to wear the boyfriend jean, and I want to wear the Oxford, and I want to wear, a menswear inspired piece. And I think that is really important to take note of, because nobody wants to be handed some prepackaged idea of what they're supposed to look like or how they're supposed to dress. And I think we do that a lot in the active and outdoor industry. We're like, okay, here is a pink tank top or a lilac pastel tank top and a capri, with a fun little cute print on it. And I'm very complex. I don't want to wear a fun, cute print. I want to wear something, that sparks conversation, or that's dynamic, or that feels modern and contemporary. And I don't think that we're doing a good enough job monitoring what lifestyle contemporary women are wearing. I'm not saying we need to be slaves to the runway and follow fashion trends like robots, but I do think someone in the room, and by the room I mean your design studio, needs to be paying attention to what's going on outside of the box and what's happening on the runway. You have to know, because those trends 2 years out are going to trickle down at some point, and it's going to affect what's happening in the mainstream market, including outdoor and active. The retail landscape really could use a little bit of a recharge. I don't really know of any success. I don't want to say that word. I can't put my finger on a women's retail that is engaging to me as a young, modern, contemporary, educated, creative woman. I don't know if any of the big box retailers are doing it. I think that's a really great opportunity for someone to do it really well, because no one is doing it yet. Kit and Ace which is Chip Wilson, his wife and their son JJ's line from Lululemon, has just opened this, new outpost of technical cashmere. They're going to do 300 doors this year, and it's all very modern, very clean, very polished. It looks like a place you would want to shop in, and it's all very much easy to navigate. It's not out of the box. Again, look how uniform everything.